we're launching a marketing campaign that shows off a lot of the great attributes that we have in the city of Gloversville, both across a variety of sectors, right? So we're looking both privately and publicly between business owners within the school system, so with yourself and Nathan Latower, the police department, the fire department, everywhere, and trying to find folks that embody this diverse nature that we're looking for to tell their story and tell us how you ended up in Gloversville, what made you stay in Gloversville, and of course, talking about what we can do to be more welcoming and really show off the city as being opportunistic and being sort of a haven for people that are diverse. So I wanted to start off with sort of telling us your story and telling us, what brought you here, and give us a little insight to your background.
Okay. So, well, I guess, I went to high school in Montgomery County.
Okay.
But shortly after high school, my first 2 years experience were in Fulton Montgomery Community College. And my first job experience was right on Main Street in Gloversville at a place called Soul Hardware and Auto Body. And I was a delivery guy there. And from there, I joined the Gloversville YMCA at the old location, not the new location, the old location right behind, I believe, your building there.
Oh, yeah, on Fulton Street, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, and I got to tell you, what drew me there was, number one, obviously I just wanted to work out, but what kept me there was just the warm, welcoming people that were there. And, here I am, I'm a kid, even though I'm only a 15-minute drive away, it might as well be an hour, because I had no idea, number one, how big the city of Gloversville was.
Right.
I had no idea of all the opportunities here in Gloversville. I had no idea of all the, I guess when I say opportunities, like, there were a lot of factories here. There was retail here. It was eye-opening.
Right.
And then the people that I ran into, again, were just so welcoming. And I just ended up making great friends. And then after that, I was working out with a guy named Bruce Miller, and he ended up opening up another gym called Unique Physique back in the day. And that was right on Main Street across from the Harvest. And, him and his family owned Miller Refuse at the time. And again, just great people. And, here I was, just this unknown kid. And these people were like taking me under their wing. And you had no idea that they had names and they had businesses, and they were, without, for lack of a better term, much higher in the class than I was, you know what I mean?
Right.
But very down to earth. And then, believe it or not, I worked at, a place called The Cellar and Obsessions at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, right after high school, once I started working here, I really just, I had a couple little hiatuses away from here.
Yeah.
But obviously I ended up back here for the next 20 years. So, I was in Scotia Glenville, and then this is a kind of a good story, right? Another one was I had done work in Scotia Glenville as a phys ed teacher and coach. And as everybody in their life, you make mistakes, make the best choices, things like that. So Scotia Glenville, they were never going to hire me, right? So I go to LaSalle School for Boys, which is a juvenile kind of detention place. It's not like Tryon, but it's, basically the kids were court ordered to be there. Some of them lived there, some of them were bused there. But it's a private school, so I'm not making much money, but I'm learning, and it's probably the best teaching experience of my life. So I apply to Gloversville for PE. Again, I didn't realize how big the city was, didn't realize the opportunities of the school, didn't realize the opportunities of the city. So Bob Gould comes here. He calls me in, and it's just me and him. Now everything's done by committee. So again, that kind of like man-to-man thing was just a really cool thing. And, I toured the school, I toured the facility, and this is well before any building project we've had, and it was impressive back then. So, you know, he basically hires me, and he says, I got a call from Tony DeCoco, who was the coach at Scotia Glenville, says you're a super guy, says you're going to work hard, and I respect Tony a lot, and that's all I need. And I've been here the last 20 years.
That worked. Tony's word kept the seniority going, huh?
Well, you know, again, it's just, you know, true blue collar people who take people at their word, you know, who believe in people and say, hey, you know what? People make mistakes. It's almost like the land of second opportunities, you know? And if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to be a good person and work really hard, this place accepts you like family. You know, and that's the best way I can put it. And from the first minute I met you know, Pete Simeone, guy, another business owner, John Calabrese, another guy, and they had the alumni club, the football, and then Don Landrio, who brought me into the hoop club because I was a basketball coach. I mean, these guys, they just, you know, for lack of a better term, they just wrapped their arms right around me and brought me in. Yeah. And it was just the best feeling. And I don't know where else you would feel that way. You know, I've been to a couple other places and worked in a couple other districts and never felt that kind of like community, that kind of, we're going to take care of you, that kind of like, hey, you are now part of us. Right. Let us take care of you. It was really, really cool.
And I think that idea of inclusion and that idea of being welcomed here gets passed down. Like, I feel like it's passed down through generations, I think, too, as you sort of go through that and you feel that yourself. Yeah. You're almost, it's sort of ingrained. You get obligated to want for others to feel like that too. I think that it speaks a lot on behalf of, you know, your pride for your community. You want people coming in who may be new, who may not be familiar with the place, to feel as welcome as you did growing up, and sort of in your you know, trek back home as a professional. Yeah. So in saying that, I mean, now you being the principal, can you talk a little bit on how you sort of, you know, as you grew up and coming to Gloversville and going to the YMCA, how have you sort of incorporated that mentality of welcoming people and being welcome to yourself? How have you incorporated that mentality into your strategy with the students and the teachers at the high school?
Well, you know, I would say my current vision right now for the staff and for us as a school is we have to continue to grow and stay open-minded and looking for the possibilities, and don't let challenges be barriers and roadblocks, you know? So I guess translating what I just told you into how I am now, it's, you can't listen to the rhetoric. You know, you're going to hear and watch and see and read a lot of things about our city, and they're not going to be wonderful. But what you've got to do is you've got to work hard. You got to open your eyes and you got to give it a chance. And you've got to show people past those barriers, past those roadblocks. So my vision says we have to grow and get better each day. So when you see a kid, that's the way you should be looking at that student. And number one, just like people did to me, wrap your arms around that kid, see what they have and see the potential and bring that to life. Not worrying about maybe what side of the city they're on, not worrying about who their parents are or who their parents are not. This is what we have to work with. Wrap your arms around them, show them that they have great opportunities here, and let them be great individuals that will hopefully give back to us.
Right. I think it's important, especially kids going through adolescence. There's a lot going on, and just trying to either be accepted or feel free to express yourself without fear of judgment of others. And I think even adults have to get to that point and deal with that sometimes. Yeah. So I think it's very important to implement a level of support with kids starting young. Can Can you elaborate a little more on challenges that you're seeing in the student body? Anything that sort of presents itself with some of those barriers?
Right now, clearly, I think the biggest obstacle we're all seeing is the isolation.
Yeah.
We were kind of isolated just by geographically where we are now. I mean, now we've even made that smaller by not being able to travel, and some of us have decided not to come to school.
Right.
So, the biggest challenge is how do we say, number one, school is important and you have to build the time around it so you can be successful. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, how do we build that bravery up into you where you can say, hey, your name's James, right?
Yes.
That's why I got the, hey, James, I'm in need. I'm struggling here. You have to help me. And, that first starts by, almost doing this, James, I need your help. You got to turn your camera on. And right. So they can see you,
Right.
A lot of our kids are not turning their camera on for multiple reasons. And not just because they're struggling, but, they're out of routine. And what teenager wants to get up in their pajamas and turn the camera on?
Right.
Hey, I didn't as a kid, and I'm sure.
I'm an adult. I don't want to do that when I'm working from home, man. It's the same.
So, the challenges are, let's break down these walls of isolation and get the kids educated. And then it's to narrow it down even further, it's almost a mindset.
Yeah.
Us as teachers, Regents exam, get the curriculum in, get them to achieve on a test. That almost now has to become secondary to say, James, are you okay? Yeah. What can I do to get you to move forward? I understand you're struggling, but hey, what kind of music you listen to? Hey, you know what? I listen to that same music too. Sometimes I get into a little bit of a dark place too, and it's okay. We got to be in this thing together and let's move forward. Right. The greatest thing about Gloversville is that in a time of need, I've never seen a city or a place step up like it does.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest attributes of the city.
Yeah.
In a time of need, I've never seen more people come together to help out somebody, a group, a person, a family. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, just look at our scholarships alone. I mean, we're giving away almost $1 million in scholarships every June, with almost $250,000 to $300,000 of that coming just from right here within the city.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. It's huge. So, again, how do we break those walls of isolation? How do we change our own mindset almost to make education a secondary thing, or the icing on the cake to make sure that people are healthy and well and doing their thing?
Right.
And then, how do we show that, hey, we're here for you as a group, as we always have been?
Right. And it's sort of moving that platform. I think even in, traditional in-person learning, the engagement has always been sort of a barrier for educators to hurdle over. Mm-hmm. And the level that it's at now is just taking such a high precedence that it has no choice but to be put as a priority, and then say, okay, now I can see you. Now that we're here, let's talk about today's lesson while trying to keep you engaged.
Yeah.
So, I think that the greater community is really coming together to try to view this and see where people can help out where we can. But it's, when times are unprecedented, it's sort of difficult to do that.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about even, as we move forward, as we go forward, because I think that even just the environment of the school system is going to look different moving forward. Are there any internal resources that the school provides? Is there any that allows kids that are diverse, that embody this sort of diverse avatar that we're thinking of? Are there any alliance programs or anything like that students can tap into to feel more welcome and start to express themselves anymore? And if there are, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Our LGBTQ Alliance Club has always been in play for as long as I can be here. But the best part about that club is the advisors say we're not moving forward unless the student body wants to.
Right.
So what does that mean? That basically means, in a nutshell, some years it didn't exist because kids didn't come and say tap on the shoulders of the advisors.
Right.
This year we had where some clubs are not even running, to be honest, because basically we tasked the advisors, we need your plan, because you just can't hold after school events now, right? You can't go out into the community, right?
Right.
So we need your plan, and I can't approve you unless you have a plan.
Right.
So the kids approached Miss Joanne DeMars, who's also a master teacher, by the way, and said, hey, you know what? We really want to get this thing going. Here's our plan. So what I'm trying to get to, James, is the fact that that group is there. It's been established by kids, and the advisor is truly just a guiding person.
Right. Sort of facilitating.
You got it. And so that right there in itself is another great place to be. We also have what's called an empowerment group that's run, and it eludes me right now. It's actually run through the school, but with a person from an outside organization, and I can't remember what that one is. But basically, it's those students that that are caught up in a little drama and a little bit of a shell, or are struggling with some things, and they're given tools about how to build themselves back up, and they're sharing those stories with one another, and they're being guided by an adult. And we have all the partnerships that I think maybe a lot of schools do, but maybe some don't. We have a partnership with St. Mary's Mental Health. We have a partnership with the Fulton County, the Family Counseling Center. We have our own behavior specialists within the district.
Yeah.
And, each building has its own school psychologist at each level. So, I think not only within its own four walls of the schools, we're also partnered well with people in the community. As I said before, this community steps up. So they know that our kids are struggling, so they're knocking on the doors too.
Of course. And I think that, even my focus primarily is focusing on the development of downtown Gloversville. But I think that anybody that thinks about or is pretty well ingrained with what's going on in the city knows that, there's a synergistic relationship with the rest of the city, the school system, everybody, sort of stakeholders in the city's development, whether it's in downtown or beyond. So I know that there's a collective effort to try to figure out how can we build on some of these resources that are available within the four walls of the school and offer, resources and places to go for students outside of school. What can happen after the bell rings and they want to, they may not necessarily want to go home or are able to go home in that moment. What can we do to help fill their time so that they're either advancing their studies or staying productive and staying, in a responsible mindset. So I think that that's something that the overall community is building on and working to achieve even more. I think that it's important to look at it.
And I don't disagree. I think there's a gap there. I think we've got to fill that gap. We got to work together to do that.
Yeah. And I think that, even some places that make it seem better for kids to go to and that have a lot of community support behind it and have stayed as places for some of the kids to gather at the end of the day, right? Like Elk Street Park, for example, we've been working to revitalize the park, and we're trying to make it more welcoming and safer for kids to at least start there and figure out, where to go and where to spend their time productively and get in a pickup basketball game or even just hanging out with friends in a safe area. So, we start there and then we build on top, but we got to make sure that we're collaborating together.
Yeah. And I also see that, downtown's almost becoming like a walking mall.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. I mean, I think that's
I think that's a big part of it. I think that kids want a place to go. Osama and I were out filming one day and there were a few kids that were riding bikes and they're like, yo, can we be in the back of this video? And we're like, yeah, it works out really well. So we had a few kids running up on bikes behind us, which was, it works well, but you can tell that there's sort of there's definitely a desire to want to be more involved in the community, even as kids. And so hopefully getting into this next year, and as we either, sit back into a new sense of normalcy or advance into what this new sense of normalcy is going to look like, weaving in the school kids and a literacy program and everything is going to be an integral part of our overall development strategy. So I'm excited to work with community members to get that going. One final question I have is if what would you say to a family that's moving here for the first time and they're thinking and they're weighing, the school system here, and they're weighing and where to send their kids, and they want to know that, there's a proper amount of exposure that they can get themselves into, and they want their kids to succeed and be exposed to diversity throughout. What would you say to them? What would you talk to them about?
Well, I would say, number one, you have to look at the opportunities that every school provides you. We are the largest school in Fulton County. We have the most college credits offered that kids can achieve. And let's not forget that they're paid for. Okay. We have great partnerships with Fulton Montgomery Community College and Albany and University of Albany and even the University of Syracuse. Mm-hmm. You look at our league. People think of leagues as athletic.
Right.
But what people don't understand is that we also are an academic league as well. I am in constant contact with with all of comparable school, with 9 other schools of comparable size in the Capital District.
Yeah.
So, and I don't take that lightly. I talk to those guys all the time. We're conversing about, hey, what can we do in this crisis? Hey, what are you guys talking about for your prom? Hey, what's happening with diversity within your school? And I'm talking to Amsterdam, and I'm talking to Scotia Glenville, and I'm talking to Queensbury, I'm talking to Schuylerville, I'm talking to rural, other small city schools, some bigger rural schools. So, I guess what I would tell that family is yes, it's Gloversville, and we have small city and rural values, but the opportunity that lies within the school and the communication that bridges out from our school is not something I think you're going to find other than in Gloversville.
Excellent. I think that's a really good point to bring up. Excellent. Very good. We covered a lot of ground. It's very informational. I
hope I didn't monopolize it or anything.
No. Listen, the idea of the interviews, and there's going to be a series of these. We're going to be talking to, like I said, a bunch of people in the community, and what we want to do is gauge this level of both diverse folks in the community and also their perception and their efforts of what they're doing to aid in that diverse advancement, right? So we want to make sure that people are able to tell their stories and tell their platforms and talk about what brought them to Gloversville, kept them here, and then making sure that we can incorporate their perception and ideas into making Gloversville even more diverse, even more welcoming to people, to feel that, again, that we're a supportive community. And I think you gave us a lot of great examples that prove that. There you have it. I want to thank Dr. Rich Demallie for contributing to this series that we have, talking about diversity throughout both downtown Gloversville and throughout the city, and some major contributing corners of the city, whether it's the school system or the hospitals, business owners, community members, talking about their own experiences with being welcomed into this community, what brought them here, what kept them here, and what they're doing to make Gloversville more diverse and more welcoming. So as we go through this, please pay attention to that narrative. And if you know anybody you'd like to nominate for us to talk and interview with, please feel free to shoot me an email at jamesh@fccrg.org. Looking forward to developing this. Stay tuned, and we'll talk to you next time.